Hi, Paola. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. Well, thank you so much for joining us. This is our Cambridge Mentor Training, and it's designed for new mentors who have been matched with the Cambridge Side program to learn a little bit more about what there's going to be going on in this academic year. And I have here with me my esteemed colleague, Paola, who is the director of the Cambridge team, and she'll tell us a little bit more about her involvement here at Enroot and a little bit more about Cambridge. So I'll pass it on to you.
Thank you, Vanya. It is so exciting to be preparing for another school year. And I want to start by saying thank you so much to all of you who have signed up to be mentors with Enroot. Our program really makes a difference in the life of our students. And we really couldn't do it without the support of our mentors and folks like you who are committed to helping our students find a sense of community, a sense of belonging as they transition and figure out their journey now that they're here in this country and in our community of Cambridge. So to start, I'll give you a little bit of background on me. So my name is Paula Pelletier-Zuna. I use she, her pronouns, and I am the Cambridge Program Director. I have been in this role for 2 years, but I have been with Enroot for a total of 4 years. So I've really seen our program grow and evolve in so many different ways. And I've gotten to see the incredible impact that our work has on the lives of immigrant youth in Cambridge and Somerville. So to give you a little bit of background on Cambridge, we have been around for a really long time. So Cambridge was the original site at Enroot. We got started in 1992. And a very brief history is that when Enroot was an organization called Cambridge Community Services, we were later renamed to Enroot. But back then, we made the decision to create a program to support immigrant youth that were moving into Cambridge with their families in the late 1980s, early 1990s. And we decided to build a partnership with the high school, with Cambridge French and Latin. And the program became such a critical component of the success of immigrant youth at Cambridge French and Latin and for the Cambridge School District that it became a staple for the community. So as the years went by, our program continued on supporting immigrant youth. In 2016, we then renamed to Enroot. We changed our name from Cambridge Community Services and became Enroot and decided to put all of our focus on supporting immigrant youth. So the Cambridge site has a lot of rich history. We have a really wonderful reputation with not only the school district, but a number of local partners. So when you come in as a mentor, you are coming into a network that has already been pre-established that is supporting our students. And so you get a lot of support, obviously, as you come into Enroot and learn and figure out how to best support your student, but you're also one of the players in a very wide network of partner organizations, teachers, administrators at the school that are all working towards helping out and supporting our students as they navigate this new journey. So I hope that was a little helpful background, a little 101, but yeah, that's it.
Well, thank you so much, Paola, for that awesome background. I think you kind of cover it all, and it gives also a lot of context of like how the demographics in Cambridge have changed, and a little bit more of like the context of how our immigrant community in this part of Cambridge has really changed over the last few
Yeah.
decades. And so it's also important to name that, we are currently in unprecedented times. So it's interesting also the way we're building community and supporting our immigrant families here.
Yeah, for sure.
Great. Okay, so let me share the presentation. So a little bit more of what's going to happen today is, why is it like this? Oops. Is the welcome that we just did, a program overview, expectations and mentoring and best practices. So as we've said before in orientation and in many of our handbook and policies is that Enroot's vision is to empower immigrant youth to achieve academic, career, and personal success through inspiring out-of-school experiences. One of the things that Enroot does best is trying to connect students with mentors in the community in order for them to form a 50-50 partnership where students feel like they are empowered to make their own goals after graduation throughout their high school journey, as well as what it looks like after they're graduated from high school. And we support students to make a lot of choices. Some of our students go into the college path, some of our students go into the workforce right away, some of our students start their business, some of our students go to trading school. So it really just depends on what our students decide to do, and we are the supporting adults. So our role is to really just help them and coach them and be there for them in case they have questions, but also making sure that they feel empowered to make those decisions and they feel empowered to know what's best for them. And so a little bit of Enroot's unique model is that. So a little bit of the program overview as well, as you've probably also heard that our Enroot students come from 36 different countries and speak 30 different languages. And I think a lot of that comes into play as well in which of our sites we are at. So Cambridge is probably one of our most diverse in terms of languages historically, and I think demographic has also changed in the last few years as well in terms of like ESL needs and as well as like how we're helping our students in the schools as well. We have 160 high school students from Somerville and Cambridge Rainsford Latin School and 95 college success students and 220 volunteers for this upcoming school year. So we growing our programs, we are making sure that our mentoring programs is also growing as well. So this year there's things happening something differently, right, Paola? We are finally moving in person. Can you tell us a little bit more of how that's going to evolve? Like what are some of the policies that we're thinking as of right now? And let's frame it like right now is July. And so a lot of things can happen in the next few weeks. But as of right now, how are we envisioning our in-person programming?
Yeah, so in March of 2020, our program transitioned to virtual, and it was between 2020, 2021, fully virtual, and then 2021 to this year, we decided to do a hybrid program, which worked out really well for us. So a lot of our mentoring happened virtually, but about once a month or once every couple of months, we had really fun in-person activities with our students. We would go on field trips and have a lot of fun together. This upcoming year, the vision is that we will go back to a fully in-person program, the same way we had it before March 2020. And what that means is that we're kind of going back to our roots and what we know, which is in-person interaction, with our students, and we'll dive into more specifics of what that's going to look like. But we're really excited to go back to work out of the school, to have you meet your student at CRLS once a week and really build that that connection in person. Again, and like Vanya was saying, we are currently in July and already seeing a lot of things change. We anticipate that the program will remain in person until there is, if there is a shift that requires that we make a different decision and possibly go back to a hybrid model. What the good news about that is that although we always prefer in-person interaction, in-person work with our students, because I mean, nothing can replace that one-on-one time in person, the good news is that this past 2 years, we learned how to do mentoring virtually really, really well. So even though our students were virtual with their mentors meeting once a week, it did not have any impact or any significant impact in the quality of their relationships. So I say that because although we are fingers crossed, hoping that we go into an in-person program, we also ask that you extend us a lot of patience and flexibility with any possible changes that may happen in the fall. And that if we do have to go into a hybrid model for a set period of time, that you're not concerned that that might impact your ability to build a really strong connection with your student. Because we figured out how to do this well, and we would give you all the support that you need in order to maintain a solid and meaningful one-on-one relationship and communication with your student. And then the last piece is just make sure that you're always reading communications from Enroot, whether that is from the Cambridge team or from Vanya, because there's always going to be, we're always going to keep you informed about what changes are happening, what we need to ask of you. And so nothing should come as a surprise. And that's one of the things that we also hope that you tell us as well, as you maybe, you know, at risk of infection, or, you know, meet with someone, maybe worried you have COVID. We also hope that you can communicate those things to us so that we can all be on the same page and continue planning together.
Thanks so much, Paola. And all communication will be written, and there's always an email that goes out before every mentoring night from the team explaining a little bit more of what the process is, and eventually becomes part of the routine. So as policies are changing, right, like the Cambridge team will let us know how to accommodate. And I think, just reiterating what you said, flexibility is key given these unprecedented times. So tell us, Paola, what mentors should expect? What are some of the things that we should be looking for? I mean, you're the expert here. Cambridge has been very unique. And so tell us, and I'm gonna make sure that at some point we stop sharing so I can ask you a couple of questions too.
Sounds great. So here are some of the most important things that we hope you remember and you take away from this training. And this is like, kind of like our logistics bit. So the first thing you should know is that when you sign up to become a mentor within Enroot, you are committing to meeting with your student for 1.5 hours a week. And so the way that looks like is in Cambridge, every Tuesday from 6 to 7:30, we meet at the high school. We usually book a smaller, they have two cafeterias, we book the smaller one, and we have programming that we have set up for you. So once a week, you come in, you meet with your student, you grab a snack, and there'll be a number of activities that, whether it's one-on-one or with a group, it's all going to be curated and planned for you to give you an opportunity to have the most meaningful time with your student when you meet for that 1.5 hours. We know things come up. So if there's obviously a given week when you can meet with your student, just let us know and we'll come up with an alternative plan for you and your student to meet or check in via text or FaceTime that week, or just, you know, meet again on the following week on when you're able to get together again. So again, Tuesdays from 6 to 7:30 p.m. From October, which is when we have our kickoff, all the way to June. Trainings, all students attend volunteer trainings. Vanya is our training queen. She makes sure that you have all the tools that you need in order to be really successful. And a lot of our trainings are obviously mandatory, and there's a wide variety of them. And I'm sure you have a lot of resources that Vanya has set up to make sure of that. But it's really important that you get as much information as you can about how to successfully support our students, because the number one thing we don't want to do as mentors is cause any harm, even if we're approaching it being really well-intentioned. So it's really important that you make the time for those trainings, like if you're watching this video, but in the future also make time to just really think critically and intentionally about how you want to show up for your student. Check-ins. We have check-in with mentors once every semester, sometimes twice and sometimes more, depending if you need it. But on a more formal basis, you should expect to hear from the Cambridge team once every semester to check in on how things are going. That's a great opportunity for you to share any concerns that you have about your relationship with your student and how things are getting along, or any things you want to celebrate about, you know, achievements or things you've been able to do with your student. It's a great opportunity just to take a bit of a get the pulse of just how things are going. If there's obviously anything else that comes up, we always hope that you let us know and you don't have to wait until the official check-ins. We're always around, whether that is in person or a quick email or a quick phone call if something is more urgent. We want to make sure that you know that you always have access to us. But if things are going well, no news is good news, and then we'll just wait until we have our once per semester check-in just to see how things are going. The other thing is, which ties to what I was just talking about, is that taking initiative is really, really critical, that you reach out to Enroot staff about anything from big things like concerns about your students' well-being to small things like you can make it to a mentoring session. I believe the most successful mentoring pairs that I have seen in all my years at Enroot are the ones that are really good at communicating what they need, what they need interventions for, and they don't wait until things get really bad in order to tell us. So please take the initiative, especially with really, really big things, because that can obviously be critical, kind of like the timing on when we can jump in and either support you and your student or jump in and support the student. Communication, also really critical, and this is communication with your student. So at the very beginning of when you meet, one of the first things we'll ask you to do with your student is to sign a communications contract. And we created a contract because it feels official. It's a little bit scary, but you are really saying that you're signing up to communicate in a given way and with a set structure. So for example, you and your student will exchange phone numbers, and you might say, the best way we want to communicate is via text. And if one of you cannot attend a meeting, you will text each other, and one of you will text in group. So those are conversations that, although might seem a little arduous and it's just not fun sometimes to have, they're really critical. So we make you sign that contract at the beginning, and that way you and your student have set expectations on how to communicate with one another so that there's no sort of misunderstanding and one person's expecting a phone call and the other person's expecting a text. But another thing that I also want to emphasize is that our students are teenagers, which are, if you remember when you were a teenager, I was just really bad at communicating. And so our students require a lot of patience sometimes. And so if you're not hearing from your student after multiple tries, let us know, and then we can jump in and figure something out with you. Sometimes they change their phone numbers. That happens more often than you think. Sometimes they just, didn't have the time, or they were helping out a parent or a sibling. So a lot of things happen. So if you're trying to communicate with your student, even though you're both signed your communications contract, let us know and we can help out. And then lastly, have fun. The Enroot community is such a special community. And not only because our students are so incredible, and you get to meet not only your student, but your students' friends, you get to meet other mentors, and it is just so special that there are so many people working towards the same goal, which is to support our students, help us find a sense of belonging, but also all the learnings that we get from our students as well. So it's not only like we are giving them something, we get so much from the work that we do with our students. And I can promise you that it can be a really meaningful, special relationship and experience for you if you commit to it and you approach it with a lot of, just like flexibility and patience and self-love for yourself and love for your student. It can be a really good and special thing to do. So yeah.
Paula, can you tell us a little bit more of what kind of communications should mentors be expecting from the team? I know I mentioned emails, but there's other kinds of ways you communicate with mentors. Like, can you mention a little bit of what that's like?
Yeah, for sure. So like Vania said, once a week, we always send out an email to all mentors and students reminding them of our upcoming session. It always contains date, time, where to meet. Even if you've been there before, we always do it. And we also put a little summary of what our focus is going to be for that week. So you should always expect that weekly email. We also have, like I said, our semesterly calls. We schedule those with you ahead of time. Sometimes we'll send you an individual email if there's any concerns or things that come up. And sometimes we might even do a surprise phone call, but those are very rare and mostly reserved for really important, critical things. And I think that is it. Am I forgetting anything, Mom?
What about text messaging? Do we do those for students, like, or for
Yeah.
students?
Mostly for students, yes. So we text message our students. That's another way we send reminders to them because we find our students respond much better to text communication versus email communication. So sometimes you will receive a text from Enroot, but for the most part, our text communication is for students. So if a student's like, oh, I didn't know we had this at this session, you should remind them, check your text, probably, and Ruth sent you a text.
I think sometimes we get so many messages, especially our students,
Yeah.
right? That it's not always an email. It could be a text message. It could just be like a quick, hey, like, here's the link for something. So we have
Right.
different ways to reach different people.
Exactly.
Yes. Awesome. Well, thank you for that. And then the next thing that I wanted us to talk a little bit more about, oh, where are we? Is the programming structure. I know that Cambridge has a unique programming structure. And so please explain to us how the magic happens.
Yes, for sure. So all of our students in Cambridge participate in a weekly mentoring session. So like I said, 1.5 hours every Tuesday. They meet with the mentors to work on an activity that has been preset by us and curated by us. Every 2 weeks, our students also participate in what we call a leadership seminar. So those seminars are planned in conjunction with our partners, our colleagues in Somerville. And that way we have both a similar set of experiences that we're sharing with students. But our leadership seminars are really, really fun because they are our way to broaden our students' horizons. So we might invite a panel of different careers and folks in different careers to come in and speak to our students. We've had STEM panels for students that are really interested in the sciences or medicine to come in and learn about professions that are not often known about. We might go visit a business or a lab with one of our partners in Cambridge or Somerville or in Boston. We do college visits. So weekly seminars are really special, but those happen twice a month. And the third big thing that our students get to do is to get a paid leadership internship. So we have a wide variety of partners, anything ranging from like media production with like Cambridge Community Television to working on after school, like elementary school age students and being teacher assistants. Our students get a wide variety of opportunities. The vast majority of Cambridge students sign up for an internship and they're spending roughly between 4 to 6 hours a week working on that internship. Those internship hours do not interfere with mentoring and they do not interfere with seminar. And they are pre-arranged between me, the student, and the supervisor to make sure that it doesn't overlap with other Enroot commitments. So we're very lucky that our students in Cambridge are really excited to have a lot of different opportunities. And so they tend to be pretty busy. So, which we love. And we're always very mindful about the type of opportunities that we are presenting to them. Something to note is that the leadership seminars are only for students. Mentors are not required to attend. Your only commitment is on Tuesdays when you meet your student one-on-one for mentoring. for the rest of the opportunities like seminar or internships, it's good for you to know. That way you can always be asking your student, how are things going on your internship, or what did you learn in seminar this month? And you can kind of help us in keeping the students excited about those opportunities. But you are not required in any way to do anything related to that, besides obviously supporting the student in whatever they need and being another set of ears for us to kind of hear about their experiences. Successful mentors, with all that and kind of connecting it to what I just said, are dependable and communicative, like we said before. That's a word that we've said a lot, communication, because it's really, really critical. Our patient have a strong sense, strong active listening skills, and are able to work on post-secondary prep and career planning. On this last piece, especially for students who are upperclassmen, so they're more in their senior and junior years, they're already starting to think about life after high school. And one of the things that we're very intentional at Enroot is making sure that students are pursuing whatever passions they have. And we don't think success is only something that can only be achieved by going to college. A lot of our students want to go to college, community college, and get a post-secondary education. Some of our students are excited about doing some more like technical, developing technical skills, or taking a gap year to do something really interesting or jump right into the workforce. So our hope is that you can come in and also be a partner in helping the student think through what might be a really good option for them after high school. And yeah, and then lastly, our commitment, like we said, is to meet weekly for 1.5 hours in person.
I think something that you were mentioning here was that, traditionally at Enroot, we've been doing a lot of we had different cohorts. And I think Cambridge is a little bit more fluid than that because we want all the students to interact. We want to make sure that all the students have access to the same resources. So in a way, all mentors will be in that community, correct?
Yeah, that's right. So just to give you a very brief background, Cambridge used to function on a cohort model, like Vania was saying, where we had a cohort for students that were most new to the country, to English, that was mostly focused on the student learning English, practicing with their mentor. And then we had another cohort that was more around this leadership development sort of structure that we had set up. And what we've decided is throughout the years, we've noticed that our Cambridge students are very lucky that they go to a school where they have tons of resources. So even our students that were the newest to English were catching up really quickly and wanting to become part of this other leadership opportunities that we had set up. And so you might, if you have a friend, for example, who's a mentor in Somerville, you might hear about different cohorts. In Cambridge, it's all one. And we've designed it that way because our students, like I said, are just more, they are more prepared and kind of more excited to take on these different opportunities than just be, for example, our younger students or the ones newer to English, they didn't want to just practice their English with their mentor. That could be a big part of what the student wants, no matter what they are doing in the program, but it's not the only thing they wanted. They wanted to be a part of something much bigger. So that is why our programming structure is more unique.
Awesome. Thank you for that clarification, just because we're coming from general orientation when we talk about all the cohorts. So it's very important to distinguish why Cambridge is so special. So okay, so I think this is the most important part, and I think something that as the weeks lead up to, the more meetings mentors have, the more we're in communication with them. We constantly hear about expectations and how do we set up these expectations. And one of the things that you always tell me about that is to have patience and trust the process. However, I know that we want a little bit more than that. So I would love for you to tell me, because you obviously have a lot of experience. I've seen, so many years of the cycle going through it. What are some things that we should be expecting? What are some things that we should tell our volunteers or mentors about their journey as they're coming into Enroot?
Yeah, definitely. So, like I said, in the last 4 years, I have seen so many hundreds of mentoring pairs have a very wide array of experiences at Enroot. And I think these 3 points are the most critical in making sure that if you follow them, they will 100% give you the space and the ability to have the best possible experience as a mentor at Enroot and show up the best that you can for your student. So the number one is when you first meet your student, be really intentional about getting to know them. Each student is so different. They approach Enroot from a wide variety of different experiences and backgrounds, levels of privilege. I mean, there is everything really. And I think one of the most important things is that you don't come in with any preconceived notions about what your student has experienced. Just because they're an immigrant youth doesn't mean that automatically it has meant that they have lived a life of struggle. That is not the case for a lot of our students. So it's really important that you come into it with a lot of openness and just ask your student questions. Be like, what excites you about this school year like we have here? What are you concerned about? What do you hope to accomplish? Tell me about your country. Tell me about what it meant for you to move here. You know, what do you love most about your grown-ups or your caregivers? You have siblings. I mean, there's just so much that you can learn just by asking open-ended questions without any preconceived notions about what your student may or may not have experienced. So that's the number one thing. Secondly, understand that your student is facing different challenges that can be institutional or personal. So no matter where the student is at in their journey, being an immigrant youth is not easy. Some students have it easier than others, obviously, depending on a number of factors. But it's really important that, again, you approach it with a lot of openness. So we've seen students that from day one, they are so excited to have a mentor. They want to communicate with their mentor. They're excited to meet with them. They want to open up to the mentor right away. And they are just, they become very bonded very quickly with a mentor because it's another adult in their lives that they can count on, they can talk to, they can kind of bounce, ideas with, and it can be really special. We have other students who go through a different journey where at first they might be a little bit more quiet. They might not want to share too much, and slowly they open up. And I've seen a lot of those be just so beautiful. I mean, I'll never forget a few years ago we had a pair where the student was so shy and the mentor was so concerned she wasn't making a connection. And I said to her, I was like, just do something like quiet. Like this student was naturally a very quiet person. And so the mentor decided to teach her how to knit a hat. And so every Tuesday they got together and they just were knitting together, and they both knit identical hats, and it was the cutest thing I've ever seen. And so I think an example of that mentor just being really thoughtful and asking for help and letting us know, being very patient, allowed them to develop a really special relationship at the end. And then the third case that I see often is students that start out really excited, and then as the months go by, or sometimes even weeks, we see them communicating less and less with their mentor. And there could be a number of reasons as to why this is happening. It could be personal reasons, school stress, health issues. I mean, there could be a number of things. And what we ask of you during that time is that you are patient with yourself. Don't take it personally, because 99.9% of the time it has nothing to do with you. And that you let Enroot know, so that we know how to support you, how to support the student, and figure out a way to get you to reconnect. And then lastly, you can create a meaningful connection even in as we're in the midst of this really uncertain kind of wild times. It can be really easy to kind of lose hope, and maybe you meet with your student 1 week and then you don't hear from them for a month, and then you hear from them again, and it feels kind of flippy floppy and up and down. But just know that just the fact that you are there when they need you is the most important, and one of the most important things that you can do for your student. So let them take the lead on how they need the support. Let them feel empowered by just showing up, offering opportunities, and then letting them make a decision. So again, your goal is to be another adult in their lives that can just provide a ton of support. And like I said earlier, there is a team of people that are out here trying to help out your students. So it's not on you alone to be that person, that support system for the student, but just know that with enough patience and good communication and the right level of intention, you can create a meaningful connection. And I'll say that even if you feel like you're not making a difference, you are. And I have seen that, and I have heard that from mentors where they're like, I don't know if I'm doing anything. And I see on the back end the student and their experiences, either whether it's academically or how they are at school, change just because they have such a positive example and a positive relationship in their lives.
So thank you so much for all that you're saying. And I think it's so important that you're highlighting like the importance of being flexible and the importance just like lean into the process a little bit. And also, I think the technical part of this is that sometimes even staff doesn't know what's going on with the student.
Correct.
And so also we are sometimes unable to figure out what's happening because we're talking to teachers, we're talking to the counselors, and we just don't know what's happening. And so we can all be in the same journey trying to figure out what the student is going through. But at the end of it, it's also about trusting that our students making the best decision for themselves. And if that means like pulling away a little bit, like letting them have that space. And it doesn't mean that we don't know or we're not trying to not share information, right? Like I think you've seen a lot of that. Can you just expand a little bit more on how sometimes like students just are not just transition out of the program?
Yeah, definitely. That happens, obviously. Like with anything, life happens and we have to take a step back. Obviously, it happens for students as well. One of the things I think is important to note is that in Cambridge, we have between 40 and 50 students that we welcome into the program each year. We match each of those with a mentor. And so at any given point, we might have between 80 and 100 individual people that we're keeping track of, that we're trying to support. So you being patient is so critical for us to be able to do our jobs well. And like Vania was saying, things come up on our mentors and life happens. They change jobs, they have losses in their families, all kinds of things happen that students that have force our mentors to take a step back. And the same thing happens for students. Sometimes they are too overwhelmed. Sometimes they have other commitments. They have, their parents have financial losses or loss of jobs or health issues that just not make them capable of committing to Enroot at any given moment in the program. And when that does happen, we're going to try our best to intervene and figure out, is there another way that we can maintain this relationship between mentor and student? But sometimes that just doesn't happen. And what we'll do then is we'll figure out if it makes sense for us to kind of wait it out. Because sometimes I've seen many times that just waiting it out for a little bit can help a ton, and the student kind of gets back and they get their bearings and they get going with the program. And sometimes it makes more sense to just end that relationship and do it in the gentlest, kindest way possible, and rematch you as a mentor if we have other students that are still in need of a volunteer, or, we would obviously communicate with you about the best possible options given where you're at. But yeah, I think that's why it's so key to be patient, because obviously anything could happen.
Thanks, Paula. And thanks for that reminder that at times, like, we just need to let things take its course and trust staff that we will find you another match, we'll find a different connection, we'll figure it out together. And I think it's not necessarily an either or, it's more about like, how can we all just be in it together.
Exactly.
Great. So I think these are some things that our students said about their mentors. Last summer, we were able to ask students like, what makes a successful mentor? And so we just wanted to, highlight some of the things that we've been talking about here, like someone who respects them, and like, I'm able to respect them, somebody who can build strong, positive, authentic relationships. And I know you were mentioning a little bit more about authentic relationships, but that's the one I kind of want to highlight because I think it's the one that probably you see the most, and you've been talking about mentors leaning in, but how does that develop? Like, we see Cambridge mentors transition to college success, and like, they are with their students for many years, but tell us a little bit more about those authentic relationship pieces, maybe.
Yeah. In my experience, the one thing that allows for that authentic relationship to develop is when a mentor is not afraid to be vulnerable and to also talk about their experiences. In many ways, you and your students' experience could be very different from one another. But as long as you are able to kind of normalize what I think are very human feelings, I think that can just make your relationship feel so much more connected. A teenager who is navigating being a teenager, being in high school, doing activities, and a lot of pressures from their grown-ups and other people in their lives, might not have the perspective to think that their experience is not unique. And that is where you come in. So you can build a really positive relationship with your student when you also open up, when you give them the space to feel like whatever they're feeling is normal, what they're going through is normal, and when you can provide that level of support. So there's big things like that I think help with build an authentic relationship. And then there's also really small things, or like, well, what we would deem really small things, like remembering your student's birthday and sending them a little birthday text. It makes such a difference on a mentor-mentee relationship when they know that their mentor remembers those small things, that they can show up in ways that maybe at times other adults haven't shown up for them. So I would say that's kind of my biggest advice when it comes to building an authentic relationship, is allowing you to be vulnerable, create space for your student, normalize their experiences, and also remembering the little things makes a big difference.
Thanks so much. And I think you've touched base in a lot of what we've said here. So we're going to move on to the next slide. But I think it's also about the mentors pushing students, right, to challenge them. I think one of the things that we love when a mentor is able to push a student to try a little bit more. And then like it becomes, right, like it becomes like a subject in school, and then it's the essay in college, and then it's the FAFSA, and it's like those little pushes help our students also grow. I'm feeling like there's somebody relying on them, but also the sense of students figuring it out on their own as well.
Yeah, definitely. I'll never forget this other story. I have so many anecdotes, but there's this other story I'll never forget of a mentor pair where the student shared with a mentor. I think we were talking about careers in one of our mentoring nights, and the student said that they just wanted to work with computers. And the mentor said, oh, that's great. Like, what do you mean computers? Like, did you have any specific idea? And the student was like, I have no, I just don't want to work with computers. And this mentor pushed in a way that I think is just such a good example of how you can push and then also like broaden your students' horizons at the same time and help them see kind of beyond maybe what ideas they have already kind of preset in their minds. The student just knew they wanted to work with computers, but they didn't know exactly how. And so the mentor and the student started exploring different careers. Like you could work in IT, you could work in, software development. And at the end, this mentor taught this student like how to do Java, which I think is some pretty complicated coding system that I don't even know what it is. But the student and the mentor would meet once a week, and they would, and this mentor would teach him a little bit more of that. And so I think that's such a wonderful example of how you can push a student to think more critically about what careers they want to have, what experiences they want to have, while at the same time offering a lot of options and things that they might have not thought about, which I think is one of the most precious things about a mentor-mentee relationship, is having someone that can say, oh, you wanna be a scientist? Okay, that's broad. Let's talk about the different careers there. And maybe let's talk about how you can get an internship next summer on it. So that's also, I think, a really, really critical, really special part of being a mentor.
Thanks, Paola. So I think we already mentioned this mentor-student communication, but how can a mentor hold a student accountable in terms of showing up, right? I think like we already mentioned like what staff does, but what can a mentor do on their own?
Yeah, we love it because we're sending so many reminders to students. We love it when mentors can also help us out. So the first thing is that you can send each other reminders about the events. Just a quick text on Monday being, hey, I'm so excited to see you tomorrow, can do wonders in helping the student actually show up. If you're unable to attend, making sure that you're letting your student know and that you're creating a positive example on how to do that. Some students can feel really guilty if they can't attend a session or they feel really bad, but things happen. I think if you can set an example of a really positive way of, saying, sorry, I can't show up, then they can also do that with you. And the last thing we put, like, you can actually hold your student accountable. That's a really positive thing. And it doesn't have to be holding them accountable like, hey, you said you were going to show up and you didn't. But it can be more like, the last session, you didn't text me at all. What happened and how can we prevent that from happening in the future? Like, for example, you could say to your student, would it help you if I text you on Sunday instead? Or maybe do you need me to just call you quickly? Or, just like brainstorm with them so that they can also feel like the two of you are a team in figuring out how you can show up for this commitment that you've made to Enroot and to each other.
So I think we're getting to the end of this awesome conversation. Thank you so much.
Amazing.
Yeah. So tell us more about just logistics and how we envision this going.
Yes. So like I mentioned earlier, next school year, starting in September, for Enroot in October, we're going to start mentoring sessions every Tuesday from 6 to 7 p.m. We have 7, but it's really 7:30, so that's a typo. But from 6 to 7:30, and you'll see it in all the emails I will send out to you. And the location would be at Cambridge French and Latin School. So that's the high school. And like I said, we book a cafeteria where we have all of our sessions. And so that should be what you're putting on your calendar once a week committing to. We will have field trips that we do for mentors as well. So for example, we love going ice skating in the winter. So in December, January. So that would happen on a Tuesday as well. So it would have all of our field trips happen at the same time the mentoring would happen. They might just either start a little bit earlier or end a little bit later, but it should stay along the same kind of time range. And just to give you a sense, some of the activities we do is ice skating, we go bowling, we've gone to museums in the past, we've done picnics at the park. So, and we've played soccer in a soccer field. We've done all kinds of things. So we'll always let you know weeks in advance if we're gonna have a special mentoring session. And then, like we said, our program is gonna kick off in early October. We'll let you know the more specific dates very soon. You'll get an email from us. But this will most likely be a picnic, which happens at the Cambridge Public Library lawn, which is right next to the high school. And we'll send you more information about that.
Tell us how to get in touch with you or anybody in the team.
That's right. So the best way to get in touch is via email. So my email is just first letter of my name, last name, piosuna@enrooteducation.org. I am sure you'll be able to find that information in other welcoming packets that you get. This is my Enroot cell phone number, that way you can call me if anything happens. But this coming year, there will be 2 team members in Cambridge. So a program director and a Massachusetts Promise Fellow, which is an AmeriCorps position. And we have a fantastic AmeriCorps member joining us in August, and you will get a lot of communication from them. So we'll make sure to do a quick introduction as well.
Great. So I think that's it. I think that we have just gone over all the things that we are able to expect as we roll into this new academic year. I just want to thank you so much for all your knowledge, because you clearly have done this so many years now and you have so many stories that every time it's always a new one. So I just appreciate you so much as a colleague, and thank you so much for doing this for all of our new volunteers.
Thank you so much, Vanya, and I so appreciate all the intentionality and the work that you've done to prepare our mentors and to get ready for a wonderful academic year. And I want to again thank you all mentors who have signed up for this experience. It's going to be one of the highlights of your year. I can promise you that.
Well, if you made it this far to the video, this is the end of it. Thank you so much. And if you have any questions, you can reach out to me or Paola and we'll be able to answer them. But have an amazing day and thank you so much for watching.